For this week's assignment, we're going back to the beginning to make another sea creature with not just one bowl, but two bowls. While I knew I wanted to make something, admittedly the end result and execution for the latter part of this week was escaping me, making immense room for procrastination. Right before I was going to throw in the towel or bowl to make something else, inspiration finally entered the chat and we were off to the races. With that said, it's creepy cute sea creature bowl time.
Yeah.
Our prep work this week is a rare occasion where I do not use any armature wire whatsoever for this creature's frame, solely using copious amounts of aluminum foil, which will then be covered in Everbake clay adhesive and then Super Sculpting ultralight. Once I do apply the adhesive and then the ultralight is put in place, I'm going to do a rough measurement of where my porcelain balls are going to make their forever home, and then I'm going to complete all the steps mentioned above. But before I do that, I'm going to take a sand block and then scrape down the back of each of the bowls just so that they have a rougher edge, and it's going to adhere to the clay better during the curing process. Once the sea creature's ears are in place, I overlook the shape and decide where the face will be, and then come to an early dilemma. Off camera several weeks ago, I made these otherworldly eyes for another creature that decided I didn't want to use them. This week I have a similar dilemma. Make these eyes work or make new ones. So instead of asking for support, I'm doing a self game of rock paper scissors to determine the outcome. But I'm doing rock paper scissors Spock. As you can see, Spock always wins, meaning we're going to use the eyes for this week's build. Using my largest ball stylus to shape out the eyes, each eye will then get smashed into place, and then its entire amalgamation will get a slight elevation with another layer of foil and ultralight. Then we'll get baked for about 25 minutes to lock everything in, and then once it's cooled down, I tried desperately to save time and spit on some clay. Once I realized Reddit let me down again, we are now going to go out to the steps of adding clay to the base. Alongside Super Sculpting Original this week, I'm also going to be using Sculpting Primo in Gray Granite, which admittedly was a completely wasted step as it's going to get painted over, but once the footage was done, I put it in. Just like my last sea beast creature made, I allowed a process in my fragmented imagination to lead the way in how this looks. The early inspirations I used for this week was the cute octopus that dominated TikTok, and then the blobfish. That also said, I know most sculptors power through the quote-unquote ugly stage of projects, which you should. But you can also do what I do sometimes just to ensure your sanity, and have an extremely large laugh while you're trying to power through your state of utter confusion.
What the Alright.
So I'm going to be fully transparent with you all. That few seconds of laughter was preceded by several minutes of crying rage. Laughter sometimes is a great defense mechanism for creators sometimes, and once I return back to my echo chamber, I get enough of the Super Sculpting Original on the form, and then spend an elongated amount of time blending everything into the base, and then I'm going to add details I find sufficient with an array of silicone shapers, ball styluses, and a few custom-made sculpting tools. Once I'm satisfied with the details so far, it's time to focus on the mouths, I guess we'll call them that, on the creature this week. I'm going to wrap 2 large ropes of clay around each orifice and then blend them in. Off camera, I've already made 6 large fangs out of Super Sculpting Original and also some regular sized teeth. The left side, which I'm presuming as the dominant side of the creature, is going to have 4 fangs, while the opposite side is going to have 2. Once I have the larger fangs in place, it's apparent to match the aesthetic of my last ball creature and make some supremely large tongues of varied sizes and proportions on each side as well. Before any of you inquire, I am supremely playing this by ear at this juncture, and I honestly cannot tell you if the ugly stage will ever blossom into a swan this week, so I guess just stay tuned till the end of the video and find out. Also, just as a side note, saying sea creature or sea beast or any variation is already a vibe that I don't want, so from this point moving forward, I'm going to name this week's project Urch. And I'm sure you can figure out why. Or maybe you can't. Either way, its name is Urch. Time to finish up Urch's mouths this week by poking holes in, and then filling each one with teeth on both sides. Watching this footage back, I'm recalling this was the moment where I started to have some genuine clarity, and I'm actually happy at this stage. And I'm hoping past me is sharing my sentiments.
I don't know. I don't know. Alright, let's try it.
With visual proof showing I'm definitively a Gemini, I decided Urch has to have 3 mouths to feed, and as much normalcy that I can bring to a project like this, I gave him a standard mouth with a aerobic clay, and then once it's blended in, I will punch in some of the last remaining teeth I made a few weeks ago at a cosplay medium firm. As you saw on camera, Urch desperately needed some eyelids of sorts, and then I made an audible and decided to add some extra dimension by giving Urch several sized pieces of coral all across his frame, which are going to be made at a cosplay medium firm. For the unaware, cosplay is a polymer clay that once it's cured, retains flexibility once it's cooled down, which is great for pieces such as teeth, fingers, hands, or delicate pieces of clothing. In my case this week, pieces of coral of a weird sea creature, Urch. Once I apply some final pieces to Urch, he has a final bake to go through, and while he's cooling down, it's time to make him a base. This week's base will start out as a layer of EVA foam, which I will then trace out and cut out the shape of the base, and then at this moment, I totally realize I lied to you all, because I do use armature wire this week, which is going to be used to shape out the rock-like base that Urch will be calling home. This wire will get wrapped in aluminum foil and shaped to my liking, and then at this moment, my favorite product to use will enter the chat. In the first for the channel, I am creating 2 separate batches of plaster of Paris for this week to use. The larger batch is going to be used to cover the foil base, which is going to be made for Urch to perch on, and then a separate batch will be used to create an embankment of sorts. The main batch is going to be an array of blues, browns, and some blacks to create a nice gray color, and the other batch will be mainly reds, blacks, and some lighter oranges for a peachy color, which will be easier to paint the color palette that I'm choosing. Once I apply both batches and allow a 30-minute cure time, we are off to painting the base this week. The outer rim layer is going to get painted sepia, followed by a few patches of royal blue. As this is drying, I decided the foam layer shouldn't be left out of the fun, and then I painted it off-white to appear like a white sandy beach, and then I'm going to go over a few areas later on with a pearlescent blue. It was at this moment where even if I felt the ugly stage wasn't evolving, I was ecstatic as with this base. And at this moment, I do recall truly feeling this was one of the better bases that I have ever made. Truly, I love this base, if nothing else. With Urch's home fully painted, it's his turn to get the Earl Scheib treatment. Again, fully transparent, I battled endlessly on what colors I wanted Urch to be, before deciding on this marshy green color as the base layer to start. After I walked away for a few moments, I went down a wrestling rabbit hole on YouTube and stumbled across a lot of Jeff Hardy matches, and after seeing his hair was a myriad of different colors throughout his career, I decided Urch's look should have the same energy. So I do go with a lot of greens, reds, blues, a few patches of purple, some more reds, a lot of more blues, and then I finish off with each of his fangs getting painted orange down the line. With each fang painted, I go over all of his baby teeth and pustules with straight white. Once this is completed, I use the remaining white in my airbrush to try to create some larger spots. Then I decided that they were too large and a little bit too faded, so then I utilized a Chico stick to dab on some small spots on some of his corals, pustules, and other random areas across his frame. These thoughts really help solidify that I have successfully exited the ugly stage in a good way, and in my framework of his genetics, I decided that Urch has poisonous characteristics similar to most tropical creatures. However, he also has a conscience and will only utilize it when he has to. If you're cool with him, he's cool with you. Or however it says in the Art of War book. One of the last steps this week is taking Fabri-Tac and horribly applying it to his tongue and teeth to have his mouth appear slimy and disgusting, before I challenge all of my faculties and mental health with the final step this week, which is using resin. Now, resin is a very toxic substance to use, so please make sure you're using all safety precautions and following directions when you're using it. I am mixing 2 equal parts of parts A and B and blended it for 5 minutes. After it's blended, I'm going to be mixing in a few drops of pearlescent blue ink and stirring it in until it's consistent. And then I'm having night terrors while I'm awake as I'm adding it to his ravine and then also a few parts of him for it to stick to the base. While it spilled over the foam, a serendipitous accident did occur because I didn't want to waste it, so I just spread it all over the foam base. 24 hours later, the resin miraculously cured to perfection. And leaving nothing else for me to do this week, I'm going to be applying a satin glaze to Urch, starting with the paintbrush, and then an airbrush due to my impulsive impatience. With all of this complete, I truly believe Urch has earned his right to go to the Never place, and now it's his moment to shine. As I've said countless times in other videos, finishing what you started is the greatest reward you can give yourself as an artist. I have had such trepidations often with this week's project, but watching Urch in his glory, it makes it all worth it, and I truly hope it was worth it for you all as well. If you did enjoy this week's video, I would love if you can hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and then also set bell notifications for all the future updates for this channel. I don't want to get too sappy with you all, but recently my channel hit 500 subscribers, which for most people may seem trivial, but for me, it is the entire world to know this many of you enjoy the creations birthed in my mind and are delivered for you weekly. I'm fastly approaching my 2-year anniversary, and I want to keep the momentum going. So if anyone has suggestions for future projects, builds, please leave them in the comments. I am here to entertain. As always, stay blessed and believe in yourselves. And if you can't believe in yourself, it's okay. I will believe in you until you're ready. Take care, folks. We'll see you next week.